Despite its title, Garden of Words is a film with very few dialogues. Instead, it relies a lot on visual expressions and metaphors to convey its message. This also makes every word uttered extremely meaningful and powerful. It tells the story of a lonely high school student named Akizuki, who skips classes on rainy days to sit in a garden to draw shoes. There, he meets an older woman named Yukino, who shares his feelings of alienation. Through their relationship, we are able to rethink adulthood and explore how restrictive it can be to adolescents who are coming to age and adults who may not fit the expectations of society. For example, we see this in Akizuki and how he is already starting to think about his future and what he wants to do as a career at such a young age. In many ways, this is due to his economic position, along with the lack of support from his parents. For instance, we see him taking up extra responsibilities such as cooking and cleaning while working various part-time jobs to earn extra income. Of course, the money he earns is used as an investment to hone his craft as a shoe designer. Although this may seem to be extremely positive traits that are held by Akizuki, painting him to be more mature and responsible than his peers, as he already knows what he wants as a profession and is taking steps to commit to it. And yes, those are highly admirable qualities that Akizuki has adopted. But it also shows how adulthood seems to be very intertwined with our careers and how well we work in society. In many ways, being an adult is about acquiring the skills we need to achieve success in our careers that's often linked to how much money we can earn. This makes sense as we are all existing within a capitalistic system where economic stability is crucial for survival. But oftentimes, we focus so much on progress in terms of who we are in skill and career, but neglect to focus on emotional growth, emotional maturity, and empathy. And growing up with this pressure can affect us when we become adults. Yukino is a perfect example of this. We see this when she is represented to be a questionable adult who sits in the garden drinking beer while eating chocolates during the day instead of being at work. At first glance, she may even be judged as lazy or irresponsible. But what we learned is that she may be suffering from anxiety and depression. Though the film doesn't explicitly state that she is suffering from those, it does show it through her behavior and the use of symbolism. For example, her inability to taste anything but chocolate and beer shows how numb her senses are to her surroundings, while the scene when she broke her foundation powder is a symbol of how she can't even put on a face anymore for society. Again, showing how much pressure there is to perform as an adult, even though she is going through a lot emotionally and mentally. It is clear that Yukino has lost her path in life. She is shown to be interested in literature, but after being harassed to the point of having to leave her job as a teacher, she doesn't really know what she wants to do with her life, at least not anymore. And this is something that is unacceptable for an adult in a capitalistic society, as she isn't doing well in her career by going through this midlife crisis or making any form of professional progress, most probably affecting her income as well. As an adult in capitalism, she may be considered a failure to many in her society. But what Yukino is doing instead is that she is trying to figure herself out. She's trying to mature emotionally and mentally, and we, as the audience, got to experience her process of trying to understand her identity and place in the world, not professionally or not through her social labels, but as an individual and as a being. As stated earlier, the dialogue is minimal but effective, and every word uttered by Yukino holds heavy meaning. For instance, in a scene, Yukino states, "I'm no smarter than I was when I was 15, which poses the question, do we really ever grow up? And if so, what does it mean to be an adult? There was even a point where she asked herself, is it too late for me? Further reinstating how there is a time limit for her, or perhaps for adults in general, where we are forced to settle with something, be it a profession or an identity, once you reach a certain age, as it's too difficult to let go of responsibilities and expectations placed on us as adults to rediscover ourselves. Again, displaying how our system discourages emotional growth and identity mobility, making us all perform our roles without questioning it to live what the system tells us as a successful and respectable adult life. And although Yukino is perceived as an adult in her society, Akizuki is the one that plays the role of the adult better. He is organized, responsible, and has a clear professional goal. But does this make him more mature emotionally? And does this make him more self-aware of his identity and surroundings? In fact, it can be argued that his goal has made him one-track-minded. For example, all he does is work towards his goal while not being sure why he wanted to be a shoemaker, initially at least. Yukino even stated that he was always in his own world and is unaware of his surroundings, implying his disconnection with the external world. Of course, we see him mature emotionally as well as he starts to question why he wants to design shoes, which we learned later on that it has a lot to do with how it brought happiness to his mom and perhaps people in general. It could even be due to how it symbolizes the times when his family was still happy and together. In the end, Akizuki's time with Yukino saved her and made her reflect on herself, allowing her to learn how to walk again, figuratively and literally. Akizuki was the one who taught Yukino how to open up emotionally again, even if he didn't notice it. While Yukino's authority as an adult acts as an acknowledgement to Akizuki, it gives him the confidence that his dreams and passion is being taken seriously by an adult such as herself. In fact, their relationship can also be explained through the metaphor of The Little Prince, a book that was shown in the film. The book tells the story of a pilot who has crash-landed in a desert. There, he encounters a little prince who claims that he comes from a very small planet. One way to interpret the story is how we may be socialized into adulthood with the price of oppressing our imagination and creativity, resulting in us losing our sense of self. Similar to the film, the story shows how adulthood is a construction of capitalism and how it teaches us to quantify the value in ourselves and others. For example, how our value is determined by our class, income, and number of degrees we earn. Even the value of a degree is determined by the potential job prospects it may provide us. And the book explores this by exploring the importance of the intangible, things that cannot be bought. It does this when the little prince asks the meaning behind his relationships and sense of being, a value that has been forgotten in the world of the adult, as it is not quantifiable. Therefore, it is no surprise that the film is heavily inspired by the book. One being the use of setting to convey desolation and spiritual awakening. For example, just like how the desert symbolizes loneliness and alienation, so does the rainy garden. The pilot in The Little Prince had no meaningful relationships before meeting the Little Prince. His life was like living in a desert, alone with nobody. Therefore, the crash landing in a desert is merely a reflection of how he felt internally. The same can be said for the garden in The Garden of Words. Whenever it rains, the garden becomes a space that exists outside the adult world. It reflects how Yukino and Akizuki feels. They feel alone and alienated from their own society. This is shown visually. For example, whenever it rains, it somehow shrouds the garden away from the industrial world. But like how the pilot found the little prince in the desert, it is this isolated space where Yukino and Akizuki found each other. In a way, it shows how by accepting our loneliness and trying to understand it, we are able to find a meaningful connection. When it rains, the garden is also a setup where people can be people without labels to their social standing and responsibilities. Yukino and Akizuki don't even introduce their names or their profession. The only thing that could give away any information was Akizuki's uniform, which implies he is a student. It is almost as if they both are traveling out of their everyday worlds and expectations to escape for a moment. This may also allude to the symbol of water in the story of The Little Prince, where when the pilot and the prince search for water in the desert, they are actually trying to quench not just their physical thirst, but their spiritual thirst as well, which may explain why the garden transforms into a spiritual or sacred space for Yukino and Akizuki whenever it rains. Space where they are able to see beyond the physical and connect internally with each other instead. For instance, they do not connect with their social labels and try to put on a superficial front. Yukino didn't try to hide the fact that she was skipping work to drink alcohol in the garden during the day, nor did Akizuki hide his love to design shoes to Yukino. The setting allows for intimate and emotional human connection for both to find their sense of being and value within the adult world through their relationship. This is seen when both of them helped each other learn how to walk, a symbol of finding themselves. But what does it mean to walk on our own paths? The film shows that we do not grow up simply by graduating or getting a job and putting on a uniform. To walk on our path is to accept that adulthood is a construction that can be very restrictive. After all, there will be times that we'll lose our path and passion in life like Yukino, and there will be times where we feel unconnected and live in our own world like Akizuki. But just like how Shinkai explores the importance of being able to connect and have empathy, he also explores the importance of being able to walk alone and look within ourselves to reflect. It is to accept that there is no destination in life where we can finally reach and obtain the title of an adult. In fact, we shouldn't see ourselves as grown-ups or adults, as we may all be children inside, always finding ourselves. Not to mention, does being an adult in this world really what we aspire to be? We should see ourselves as finding our paths by constantly reflecting on ourselves in relation to our external world, to question social expectations, so we do not get controlled by them. And as we walk our own paths, we'll meet people and make meaningful relationships and connections. Some may follow us on our journey, some may disappear, and some may even reappear.